this is like some of the most exciting stuff that I've ever gotten to be involved with and get to work on. So, in a lot of ways, it feels like early days at the company where, just where you can kind of see where things are going to go over the next 10 years. But, and it's just like, that every year there's just going to be awesome new things that get delivered.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to ask you about, because I found it fascinating that that institutions, the big people who are focusing on Bitcoin, Web3, VR, AR, they seem to be founder-led tech companies, right? And so I imagine that you guys are feeling the same kind of excitement that you had in the early days. Social media will always be around, but this so clearly seems like the next frontier.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly how it feels to me. And that was a big part of the reason why we wanted to change the brand of the company to Meta, right? To encompass the full vision of what we're doing, is because, today a lot of people see us as a social media company, and building those social apps is always going to be an important part of what we do. But I really do think that, if you were starting something today, I think the metaverse is the next frontier in social connection, kind of like social networking was when I got started in 2004. So, in order to help deliver the metaverse, we kind of need to work on both sides, the social experiences and the future platforms. So it's not like the future work we're doing is Meta. The whole thing is Meta, right? In terms of, both the social media and apps part of what we do and the future platforms. But yeah, no, it's definitely sort of an up-leveling in how we see ourselves, and just kind of having a new North Star to shoot for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I feel like this is the big question. So like with the rise of Bitcoin, crypto, NFTs, DeFi, DAOs, there's this like obvious tension, right, in between centralized companies and decentralized organizations. So I personally think that Web 2 and 3 can coexist. I know that's probably not the most, Web 3 people are very excited, as they should be. But there's a lot of people that think Web3 is the answer for everything, which is fine, guys. That's fine. But where does Meta sit in between that? How is the Meta's metaverse going to coexist and interact with other universes, other games, for example, like Roblox, Axie Infinity? These are huge worlds that already exist. So how do you see, these things just coexisting?
Yeah, so I'm very optimistic about kind of crypto and Web3 and that whole general direction. I think it's still quite early compared to what it's going to be and its full potential. So I think that there's a lot more to do there, but you can certainly see a lot of these awesome use cases are already starting to get developed, and it's I think it's really exciting to see. The way that I think about the metaverse, I don't think every company is building their own metaverse. I think it's sort of like the internet, right? You wouldn't say that Google is building its own internet, right? Or that we were building our own internet before. You'd kind of say, okay, well, we're building experiences or infrastructure for the internet. And that's kind of how I think about the metaverse too. It's not that each company is going to have its own metaverse. It's that we're trying to help build and accelerate some of the fundamental technology and platforms, whether that's social platforms or creator tools or commerce tools for the metaverse. And these things have to kind of plug into and kind of be part of a broader ecosystem of other people building this stuff too. It's I think part of what hopefully will define the metaverse is a much greater sense of interoperability and portability, where you have your avatar and your identity and how you're expressing yourself, and you have your virtual goods, whether they're NFTs or structured on some other architecture, and you want to be able to take that between different experiences. So compared to mobile, where the atomic unit on a phone is really an app, and each app is so siloed, right, that it's quite hard to kind of break down the barriers or bring stuff from one app to another. I think that the metaverse promises to be much more interoperable, where you kind of have your identity and expression and your avatar and your stuff, and you kind of, I think, will expect that you can bring that in between different experiences. A big part of that, I think, is going to be having a lot of the virtual goods and a lot of your stuff be stored and in a decentralized way, right? So that way it's not just kind of locked up in one system. But I think the reality is that there are going to be lots of different solutions. I think it's not exactly clear, which architecture is going to win yet. So from our perspective, we just want to make sure that we can support a lot of them, and certainly with an open-mindedness to where we think the future is going. But I don't think that there's like a single idea yet that's clearly going to be how everything is stored in the future. My guess is there will continue to be a plurality of different solutions, and that I think will help create a greater diversity of different experiences and an economy.
Yeah. So I feel like no matter what people think about NFTs, there's a lot of opinions out there. It's for sure, I feel like, changed the game for artists and creators. It's like those people are now at the forefront of these conversations of literally building these future platforms and new worlds, which as a creator, I think is amazing. I wish I spent some more time in Photoshop personally, because I'm kind of jealous of people's skills in this medium. But in your keynote, there's a huge emphasis on developers and creators, and as well as creating this as an open ecosystem. So, you kind of touched on it there about virtual goods, but can you share a little bit more in more detail what that's going to look like for creators building in the multiverse? What are they going to be building, just beyond goods? Like, what are their worlds going to look like? And what even is that? And, also mention this $150 million immersive learning education program, which I think will help with getting people started, right?
Yeah, well, I think that there's a whole lot of training that needs to happen, and we want to hopefully do this in a way that broadens opportunity and helps more people be creators than could before. But, to answer your main question, it's, I think that there are lots of different types of things that need to get created, from kind of whole apps and experiences and games to worlds within apps to digital clothing to digital tools. There will be, some of the games or experiences that you have will be kind of whole apps. So you mentioned Beat Saber before, so that's kind of a whole environment where it's sort of self-contained. But then you'll have people building, a ping pong table that you can put in the corner of your room, or a chessboard where you can interact with it across virtual and augmented reality. And one of the thought experiments that I like doing is thinking about how many of the physical items that we have today will actually just be able to be digital goods or holograms in the future when we're spending a lot more time in the metaverse or with AR glasses. So all of these things need to be created, and I kind of think if you think about what the economy is going to look like in the future, I don't think that most of the stuff is going to be created by a small number of big companies. I think that the role of the big companies, or the companies that are successful here, is largely going to be building platforms, so that way you can enable millions of creators around the world to basically make a living creating this stuff and having people use it in all these different contexts. And part of what I'm excited about here is that I think the interoperability is important, because if one of the analogies that we use sometimes is, it's like, sometimes it feels like you buy a jersey at a basketball game, and you're only allowed to use that jersey within the arena for that basketball team, right? It's like, that's sort of how the digital world works today. And if that's the case, then people aren't going to want to buy as much stuff, which means that if there's not as much commerce, creators aren't going to be as incentivized to build the stuff. So I think making it so that you can kind of take the clothing that you have or the tools and bring it to all these experiences will make it a lot more valuable, and will just make it so it's worth it for more creators to build it. The other thing that I'm really excited about is just bringing the fees down and costs for developers, right? I think when you think about the mobile platforms today, you have the 30% app store fees and all that. And it's just a different approach to, the way that we've historically tried to build stuff. I mean, we want to maximize the GDP of the metaverse, right? If you think about the approach that we've taken to social media, the apps are free, but our ad system is an auction, which basically means that every advertiser gets the lowest price that we can offer them to clear the auction. When we build commerce and creator tools, we basically either offer them with no fees or at cost. Oftentimes we're fighting with the mobile platforms to make sure that more of the revenue that people are paying can go to journalists or creators or different folks. And look, I mean, that's kind of the approach that we want to take to helping to build the metaverse, right? Unlike, companies that may, make a device and try to sell it for as much as possible, then we make the devices and we either subsidize them or offer them at cost. We don't make it so that you have to list your apps in the Quest store. You have, you can sideload, you can stream it from your PC. We have App Labs, so there's just different ways for you to distribute content. And we're generally we're gonna be committed to keeping commerce fees as low as possible in as many cases as we can, because we think that just enables the most creation, and at the end of the day, that's I think the path to increasing the GDP in the metaverse. And I kind of think if we do that, then at some point down the line, we'll find a way to build a good business from this too, through the commerce tools and advertising and all that. But I don't know, just making it so that the creative economy can be as big as possible, I think is a huge part of bringing this to life here.
Yeah, I know we only have a couple more minutes, but speaking of, creators and all of that, and obviously what you guys do well is ads. Is rev share with ads going to be at the forefront with this? Because, I know those tools are going to be built in, for creators to go out and create, whether it's like, hey, let's do a live stream, let's sell merch, right? But I think a big part of this world will probably be ads. Are you thinking about putting a program in place, from the beginning to have some of that rev share from ads?
So, this is all speculative because, obviously none of the ad system
far
exists.
away.
So the way that I kind of think about this is that commerce and ads are two sides of the same coin, right? Because if there isn't a lot of commerce happening, then no one wants to advertise for anything. But once people are buying things, then a creator or a business wants to get more customers, which is how the advertising part of this comes in. So for now, we're really much more focused on helping to build the creative economy and build out the tools to enable that and making the fees as low as possible. But I think once that's a big thing, there will naturally be an ad economy as part of that too, because all the people who are successful are going to want to reach more people. So then, I think as part of that, now I'm just really speculating about how the future is going to go.
Yeah.
But
sorry, we want the details.
Well, look,
yeah.
I think, similar to the web and apps, I would imagine that someone, and maybe it's us who builds this, or maybe it's someone else, will build systems so that if you're a creator and you build an app and you want to have a virtual billboard or a portal in your experience that can be paid, where that's basically what an ad is going to be in the metaverse, that you can put that in, and I'm sure there will be technology partners that you can work with to basically have that there, and then you'll get an ad rev share for that. But I think that's also different from experiences like where a company builds the experience and then sells their own apps, their own ads in it. So I think we'll have to see how this all evolves. But I guess in terms of sequencing, I'm much more focused on the kind of the creative economy part of this and helping that amount of commerce and really expression, right? A lot of the reason why people buy this stuff is there's an entertainment component, but if you're spending a lot of time in the metaverse, you'll care about your clothes and your, how you express yourself there. That's kind of this intersection between social connection and commerce. And I think that's the first step, right? That's what we have to nail. And then after that, I think there will be an opportunity to build a lot more on top of that.
Amazing. Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I know there's still a lot up in the air, but I appreciate you sharing that. And thank you so much for coming on the channel. And yeah.
Happy to.
Mark,
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.